Chicago was stirring to life on a cool October morning. Mist rolled in from Lake Michigan, wrapping the city in its milky cloak. Sophia Novak walked briskly along an elegant street in Lincoln Park, bundled tightly in her well-worn navy blue coat. In one hand, she clutched a leather portfolio, and in the other, a small bag holding her lunch. She was 42, but her face, etched with fine lines from a life of smiling, seemed younger. Her hazel eyes were tired after a sleepless night. Her younger daughter, Maya, had been running a fever. Sophia worked as a cleaner in several homes in Lincoln Park, one of Chicago's most prestigious neighborhoods. It wasn't her dream job, but it made ends meet after her husband, Thomas, died 5 years ago, leaving her alone with 2 daughters. Maya was now 12, and the older one, Caroline, was 17 and deep in the throes of college applications and studying for her SATs. That day, Sophia was starting a new job at a residence on North Lakeview Avenue belonging to Alexander Warren, one of the wealthiest men in the country. He supposedly owned a chain of luxury hotels across North America. Sophia had heard stories about him, that he was ruthless in business, a recluse by choice, and kept everyone at a distance. The friend who had recommended her for the job had warned, "He pays the best in Chicago, but he has his quirks. Everything has to be perfect." When Sophia arrived at the address, she paused for a moment to catch her breath. The residence was impressive, a 3-story modern building with a manicured garden and a view of the park. A security guard at the gate checked her ID and buzzed her onto the property. "Is Mr. Warren home?" she asked timidly. "Yes, he's working in his study. Christine will show you around," the man replied, gesturing toward an older woman standing in the doorway. Christine, a housekeeper with 30 years of service in the Warren household, greeted Sophia with a polite but distant smile. She was a woman in her 60s, with grey hair pulled into a neat bun and sharp blue eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Welcome, Ms. Novak. Please follow me. I'll show you the house and explain your duties," she said, leading the new cleaner through a marble foyer. Sophia looked around in awe. The interior was decorated with extraordinary taste, minimalist but elegant. Shades of grey, white and black dominated, broken by accents of deep red. On the walls hung works by notable contemporary American artists. She thought she recognized the style of Jasper Johns. The house is 5,000 square feet. The ground floor has the living room, dining room, kitchen, Mr. Warren's study, and the library. The second floor holds the master bedroom, a guest suite and 2 offices. The third floor has staff quarters, but Mr. Warren rarely employs live-in staff, so they're empty, Christine explained, guiding Sophia through the successive rooms. "Does Mr. Warren have any particular requirements?" Sophia asked, trying to memorize the layout. "He is a perfectionist. Everything must be in its place. He can't stand dust, not even the smallest speck, and most importantly, he values his silence and privacy. When he is working in his study, no one is to disturb him," Christine said in a matter-of-fact tone, as if reciting from a manual. "He's home today, but he usually leaves for his office around 10 and returns late in the evening. On Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, you'll clean the entire house. Tuesdays and Thursdays, only selected rooms, according to the schedule." Sophia nodded, a knot of stress tightening in her stomach. The house was enormous, and the standards were high, but the pay was more than double what she earned at her other jobs. For her daughters, she could do this. "You'll start with the living room and dining room, then the ground floor bathrooms. We'll leave Mr. Warren's study for last, after he's left for the office," Christine continued, leading her to a utility closet filled with cleaning equipment. "You have everything you need here: vacuum, mops, cleaning supplies. Mr. Warren prefers eco-friendly products without strong scents." When Christine left her alone, Sophia changed into her uniform, a simple black dress with a white collar, and got to work. The living room was spacious, with enormous windows overlooking the garden. The furniture looked expensive and designer, yet it was simple and functional. On the coffee table lay a few business magazines and a book on the history of modern art. Sophia worked methodically, starting with the vacuum. The house was surprisingly clean, as if someone already cleaned it daily. They probably do, she thought. A man with his kind of wealth could afford it. An hour later, she finished the living room and moved to the dining room. There, under a dark wood table, she saw something that made her heart leap into her throat. A cockroach. Large, brown and shiny. It crawled slowly across the hardwood floor. Sophia had a paralyzing fear of insects. For as long as she could remember, the sight of a spider or a cockroach triggered an uncontrollable wave of terror. She knew it was irrational, but she couldn't help it. She backed away instinctively, but then the cockroach, as if sensing her presence, scuttled toward her. At that exact moment, the dining room door swung open, and a man walked in, tall, slim, around 45, dressed in a perfectly tailored grey suit. He had dark hair, with the first hints of silver at his temples, and intense blue eyes. Alexander Warren, in the flesh. "Good morning, I'm the new—" Sophia started, but her words were cut short as the cockroach changed direction and darted straight for her. What happened next lasted only a few seconds. Sophia let out a terrified scream, dropped the dust cloth in her hand, and without thinking of the consequences, launched herself in the only direction that seemed safe, straight at a bewildered Alexander Warren. Before the man could react, Sophia collided with him, instinctively wrapping her arms around his neck and pulling her legs up to get as far from the floor as possible. Alexander, stunned by the sudden assault, staggered but managed to keep his balance, his arms reflexively catching the woman clinging to him. For a moment they stood frozen, she buried against his chest with her feet off the ground, he holding her by the waist, his face a mask of absolute astonishment. "What in God's name?" he began. But then he saw the cockroach, which was now calmly making its way past his perfectly polished Italian shoes. Sophia, realizing what she had just done, immediately let go and scrambled back to the floor, her face burning with such a deep blush she could feel the heat on her cheeks. "I am so sorry. I am so deeply sorry, Mr. Warren," she stammered, taking a step back. I'm afraid of insects. It was instinctive. I didn't mean to." Alexander stared at her, a mixture of bewilderment and irritation on his face. He straightened his jacket and ran a hand through his hair. "I take it you're the new cleaner?" he asked, his tone cool. "Yes, Sophia Novak. I was scheduled to start today. Christine showed me the house, and the first thing you do is throw yourself at me like... He trailed off, searching for a suitable comparison. "Like a terrified woman seeing a cockroach?" Sophia finished for him, a nervous smile flickering on her lips. To her surprise, the corners of Alexander's mouth twitched, as if he were fighting back a smile. But the moment passed in a flash, and his expression became cool once more. "Please take care of that," he said, gesturing to the cockroach, which was now marching along the baseboard. "And next time, please control yourself. I don't pay for physical contact." Sophia's face flushed again. "Of course, I apologize. It won't happen again." Alexander gave a curt nod and left the dining room, leaving her alone with the cockroach and a feeling of utter humiliation. How could she have reacted like that? On her first day, in front of Alexander Warren himself. She was certain she would be fired before she had even truly begun. With a sigh, she reached for a broom and dustpan. She had to deal with the cockroach, despite her fear. She needed this job. For Caroline, who dreamed of going to med school, for Maya, who needed a math tutor, she couldn't let an irrational fear ruin her chance at a better life. Meanwhile, Alexander Warren returned to his study, closing the heavy wooden door behind him. He sat at his desk and tried to focus on the documents he'd been reviewing before the incident. But his mind kept drifting back to the bizarre scene, to the woman who had so unexpectedly ended up in his arms. He couldn't remember the last time he had held someone like that. His life ran on a strict schedule. Work, occasional social functions, solitary evenings with a book or a good movie. After his divorce 7 years ago, he had consciously avoided close relationships. Melanie, his ex-wife, had effectively cured him of any desire for emotional entanglement. After her betrayal and their bitter separation, he had decided it was better to focus on what was predictable: business. And now this woman, Sophia Novak, with her terror of a cockroach and a spontaneous reaction that had completely thrown him off balance. There was something authentic about her, something that had been absent from his sterile, orderly world for a very long time. He shook his head, pushing the thoughts away. It was just a strange situation, nothing more. Tomorrow he would probably laugh about it, or not. Humor wasn't his strong suit. In any case, it meant nothing. Sophia Novak was just a cleaner, one of many people who passed through his house without leaving a trace. He sighed and returned to his documents. He had an important meeting at his office in an hour. He had to focus. Business didn't wait, and the new hotel project in Denver required his full attention. In the dining room, Sophia finally disposed of the cockroach, flicking it out the window into the garden. Her hands were still trembling slightly, but she felt a sense of relief. At least that part of the nightmare was over. Now she just had to survive the day and hope Mr. Warren didn't decide to fire her over that disastrous first impression. Christine entered the dining room carrying a tray with tea. "Is everything all right? I heard a scream," she asked, studying Sophia with a concerned gaze. "Yes, I'm sorry. I saw a cockroach and I may have overreacted," Sophia explained, omitting the part about Alexander. "A cockroach? That's impossible. This house is spotless," Christine said with a frown. "Well, apparently one got in. But it's gone now," Sophia assured her. Christine nodded, still looking troubled. "Mr. Warren is very particular about cleanliness. He doesn't tolerate any surprises." "Yes, I noticed," Sophia muttered, returning to her work. The rest of the day passed without incident. Alexander left for his office, and Sophia methodically cleaned room after room, trying to do her job to the best of her ability. Maybe if she proved she was competent, her morning outburst would be forgotten. By the time she finished, dusk was falling. An autumn darkness settled over Chicago, and the streetlights along Lakeview Avenue began to pierce the gloom. Sophia changed back into her clothes and packed her things. Christine was waiting for her in the foyer. "Mr. Warren has returned and would like to speak with you before you leave," she said, her tone giving no clue as to whether this was good or bad news. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. She was being fired. After just one day, how would she explain this to her daughters? How would she find another job that paid this well? With a heavy heart, she knocked on the study door. "Come in," she heard Alexander's deep voice. The study was decorated in the same style as the rest of the house, elegant minimalism. It was dominated by books, hundreds of volumes lining shelves that stretched from floor to ceiling. Alexander was sitting behind a massive dark wood desk, looking over some papers. "You wanted to see me?" Sophia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Alexander looked up and studied her in silence for a moment. In the warm lamplight, his face seemed less severe than it had that morning. "Yes," he said finally, "I wanted to apologize for my behavior this morning." This stunned Sophia. She had expected anything but an apology. "You want to apologize, but I'm the one who jumped on you." "You did, and it was unexpected," he admitted, a faint smile touching his lips. "But my reaction was too harsh. Christine told me you did an excellent job today. The house looks immaculate." "Thank you," Sophia replied, still reeling from this turn of events. "And one more thing," Alexander added, rising from his desk. "I found this in the dining room." He handed her a small velvet pouch. Sophia opened it and saw a delicate gold bracelet with a small amber charm. "I believe this is yours?" "It must have fallen off during the incident," he explained. Sophia recognized it immediately, a gift from her husband for their 10th anniversary. She wore it every day, but rarely while cleaning. Today, she had forgotten to take it off. "Yes, thank you so much," she said, moved to have it back. "It has great sentimental value." Alexander nodded in understanding. "I imagined it did. So, I'll see you on Wednesday." "I'll be here," Sophia assured him, feeling an immense wave of relief wash over her. Not only had she kept her job, but Alexander Warren had turned out to be more human than she expected. As she stepped out into the crisp Chicago air, she smiled to herself. It had been a strange day, full of surprises, but she had survived it. And more than that, something told her this job might be the start of something new in her life. With that thought, she headed for the L station to go home to her apartment in Pilsen, where her daughters were waiting. Maybe tonight they would order a pizza to celebrate her new job. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow would be a new day, with new challenges. But after today's encounter with a cockroach and Alexander Warren, she felt ready for anything. The first 2 weeks passed in a quiet routine. Sophia came to the mansion 3 times a week, diligently performing her duties. Her interactions with Alexander were minimal. He usually left for his office early and returned after she had gone home. They exchanged only brief greetings when they happened to pass in a hallway. One cold November morning, Chicago was drowning in a thick fog. Sophia arrived at the Warren residence soaked to the bone. Her old umbrella had given up against the driving rain halfway there. Christine, seeing her state, shook her head in disapproval. "You're soaked through. You can't work like this. You'll catch your death of cold." "I'll be fine," Sophia insisted, though she could already feel a scratchiness in her throat. "I have a better idea. Go take a hot bath in the guest bathroom and change into something dry. I have a spare uniform." The idea was tempting. But what if Mr. Warren notices I'm not working? Mr. Warren is at a conference in Denver. He won't be back until tomorrow. Sophia accepted the offer gratefully. The guest bathroom was luxurious, with a large soaking tub, heated floors, and fragrant toiletries. She sank into the hot water, allowing herself a rare moment of relaxation. After the bath, dressed in a dry uniform, she felt much better. As she was tidying Alexander's bedroom, a notebook on the nightstand caught her eye. She opened it without thinking. It was filled with his handwriting, a kind of personal journal. The first sentence she saw stopped her cold. "Today marks 7 years since Zoe died." Sophia froze. Zoe? Who was that? She knew she shouldn't read any further, but curiosity won. The entries revealed that Zoe was Alexander's younger sister, who had died in a car accident. Alexander blamed himself for her death. He had been driving that fateful day. "What are you doing?" Sophia jumped, startled by the voice behind her. Alexander stood in the doorway, his face a mask of fury. I'm sorry. I was cleaning and I accidentally read my private journal?" he snarled, snatching the notebook from her hands. "I thought you could be trusted." "I'm truly sorry. I didn't mean to." "You're fired." He cut her off sharply. "Get your things and get out." Sophia felt the floor drop out from under her. "Please, Mr. Warren, I have 2 daughters to support. I need this job." "You should have thought of that before you started snooping through my personal belongings." His voice was ice. "I want you out in 10 minutes." Sophia packed her things with trembling hands. When she left, the rain was still falling, a perfect reflection of her mood. She had lost her job, and she had no idea how she was going to make ends meet. That evening, in her small apartment in Pilsen, she explained what had happened to her daughters. Caroline, ever practical, immediately started looking for solutions. "Maybe you should go back and apologize again." "He wouldn't even open the door," Sophia sighed. "What if you wrote him a letter?" Maya suggested. The idea seemed worth a try. The next day, Sophia wrote a sincere apology, explaining her situation and begging for a second chance. She delivered the letter personally, leaving it with the security guard at the gate. 4 days passed with no response. Sophia had lost hope and started looking for another job. On the 5th day, as she was returning from an unsuccessful interview, she saw a black Mercedes parked in front of her building. Alexander Warren stepped out of the car. "Ms. Novak," he said, his tone formal, "I received your letter." "And you came all this way to tell me in person that the answer is no?" she asked bitterly. "On the contrary, I read your letter several times, and I realized my reaction was too severe." He hesitated. My sister's name was Zoe, and like you, she was a single mother. I'm sorry about your sister, Sophia said honestly. I'd like you to come back to work. And there's something else. He held out an envelope. If you would consider it, I need a full-time live-in housekeeper. Sophia couldn't believe her ears. Live-in? There's a staff apartment on the 3rd floor. 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a small kitchen. It's sitting empty. You and your daughters would have much more space there than you do here. Why are you doing this? Alexander looked at her intently. Perhaps because in years I haven't met anyone as authentic as you, even if that authenticity manifests as jumping on people at the sight of a cockroach. For the first time, she saw his real smile, warm and bright. It transformed his entire face. She understood that beneath the mask of the stern businessman was a man who had also suffered, who had also lost someone he loved. I need some time to think, she said. Of course, here's my card. He handed her a business card. I'll wait for your decision. After he drove away, Sophia stood on the sidewalk for a long time, clutching the card. Should she trust a man who had fired her so easily? On the other hand, his offer gave her and her daughters a chance at a better life. She spoke with Caroline and Maya late into the night. The girls were thrilled by the prospect of moving into a luxurious mansion. "We'll live like princesses," Maya exclaimed. The next day, Sophia called Alexander. "I accept your offer," she said. They moved in on Saturday. The apartment on the 3rd floor exceeded their wildest expectations. It was spacious, bright, with modern furniture and a magnificent view of the garden. Maya immediately fell in love with her room, which had a small balcony, and Caroline appreciated the quiet, a perfect place to study. That evening, after the girls were asleep, Sophia heard a knock on the door. It was Alexander holding a bottle of wine. "I thought we could celebrate your move," he said, "unless you're too tired." "Not at all," Sophia smiled. "Please come in." They sat in the small living room, drinking wine and talking. It was awkward at first, but soon the conversation flowed more easily. Sophia told him about her husband Thomas, who had died of a heart attack, and about the struggles of raising her daughters alone. Alexander listened attentively, occasionally asking questions, but mostly just being present. "And you?" she finally asked. "Why does a man like you live alone in such a big house?" Alexander stared into his glass for a moment. "I was married. Melanie, she left with my business partner, a classic story." He gave a sad smile. "Then my sister, the accident, and I was alone. And you haven't looked for anyone since?" "I learned to value solitude. It's safe." Their eyes met over their wine glasses. In that moment, Sophia realized that Alexander Warren, the millionaire businessman, was, at his core, just as lonely and wounded as she was. And maybe that was why he had offered her and her daughters a new home, because he recognized in her someone who also knew what it was like to lose everything and have to start over. After he left, she stood by the window for a long time, looking out at the illuminated garden. She felt that this was just the beginning of something she couldn't yet name, but which filled her with both hope and apprehension. As the first snows of December blanketed Lincoln Park, the mansion took on a fairy tale quality. A month had passed since Sophia and her daughters had moved in, and their lives had changed dramatically. As the full-time housekeeper, Sophia was responsible not only for cleaning, but for organizing the daily operations of the household. The girls had acclimated with surprising speed. Maya had made friends with the gardener's daughter, and Caroline was taking full advantage of Alexander's extensive library to prepare for her exams. The relationship between Sophia and Alexander evolved slowly. They spent more and more time together, at first discussing household matters, then books, movies, and eventually their own experiences and dreams. Sophia saw that behind the cool facade of the businessman was a sensitive, intelligent man. One evening, while the girls were at a sleepover, Alexander invited Sophia to have dinner with him at the residence. "Did you cook this yourself?" she asked. surprised to see the elegantly set table and aromatic dishes, with some help from the executive chef at my hotel, he admitted with a smile. But the idea was mine. Over dinner, they talked freely, laughing and sharing stories from their pasts. When Alexander spoke of his travels, his eyes shone with an enthusiasm she had never seen in him before. "Why do you hide this side of yourself?" Sophia asked. "This smile, this passion?" Alexander grew serious. "After my sister's death and my wife's betrayal, I learned that showing emotion is a weakness. In business, weakness means failure. And in your personal life." "My life is my business," he answered automatically, but the words sounded hollow. After dinner they stepped out onto the terrace, despite the cold. The snow glittered in the moonlight, and their breath formed small clouds of vapor in the frigid air. "I miss spontaneity sometimes," Alexander confessed suddenly. "The kind you showed when you jumped into my arms because of a cockroach." Sophia laughed, embarrassed by the memory. "That wasn't exactly my finest moment." "On the contrary," he said quietly, moving closer to her, "it was one of the most honest reactions I've ever seen." Their eyes met. Sophia felt her heart beat faster. For a moment, it seemed Alexander was going to kiss her, but instead, he pulled back slightly. "It's getting cold. We should go back inside." The next day, Alexander left for an urgent business trip to San Francisco. Before he left an envelope for Sophia containing a ticket to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, a Chopin concert she had mentioned during dinner. "I thought you might take Caroline," he had written on the enclosed card, "and I'm sorry for my sudden departure." Sophia wondered if the apology was for the trip or for the almost kiss on the terrace. At the Symphony Hall, a surprise awaited them. A third ticket for Alexander, who had flown back from San Francisco early just for the concert. Sitting between him and her daughter, Sophia felt a strange sense of peace and happiness. After the concert, while Caroline was in the restroom, they were alone for a moment. "Why did you come back?" she asked directly. "Because I realized some things are more important than contracts and meetings." Alexander gently touched her hand, like sharing important moments with someone. Before she could answer, Caroline returned, and Alexander suggested dinner at an elegant restaurant. During the meal, Sophia watched as her daughter and Alexander discussed literature. He recommended classics to her, and she told him about contemporary authors. "Your mother tells me you want to study medicine," Alexander said. "Yes, but it's so expensive," Caroline sighed. "Perhaps I could help. I have a foundation that supports talented young people." Sophia started to protest, but Alexander shook his head. "This isn't charity, Sophia. It's an investment in the future." When they returned to the mansion, Caroline tactfully left them alone in the foyer. "Thank you for this evening," Sophia said. "For everything." "No, thank you," Alexander replied, standing very close to her now. "For showing me that life can be full of spontaneity and warmth." This time, when their eyes met, he didn't pull away. His kiss was gentle, almost tentative, as if asking for permission. Sophia responded, wrapping her arms around his neck and pulling him closer. When they parted, they were both surprised by the intensity of the moment. "I hadn't planned on that," Alexander admitted, "and I hadn't planned on kissing my employer." Sophia smiled. "Perhaps we should redefine our relationship?" Before she could answer, the front door opened abruptly. A chic, elegant woman with a cold gaze stood in the threshold. "Alexander, darling, I'm back," she announced, sweeping inside. Her eyes fell on Sophia. "And who is this?" "Melanie," Alexander said, his face hardening. "What are you doing here?" "Can't a wife visit her husband?" she asked sweetly, shrugging off her coat. "Especially when she has such wonderful news to share." Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. Melanie, Alexander's ex-wife. But they had divorced years ago. "We are no longer married," Alexander said firmly. "Technically we are," Melanie smiled. "You forgot to sign the final divorce papers. I'm still legally your wife." Sophia took a step back. "Excuse me, I should go." "Sophia, wait." Alexander tried to stop her, but she pulled her hand from his grasp. "I need some time," she said quietly, and turned toward the stairs. In her apartment, she fell onto her bed, feeling her world crumble once again. Just when she had started to believe her luck had turned, Melanie had appeared, destroying everything with a single sentence. Caroline knocked on her door. "Mom, are you okay?" Sophia opened the door, trying to hide her emotions. "Yes, honey, I'm just tired." "I saw that woman downstairs," Caroline said slowly. "Who is she?" "It's complicated." "You love him, don't you?" Caroline asked suddenly. "Mr. Warren." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "I think so, but it doesn't matter now." "It does, Mom?" Caroline hugged her. "You deserve to be happy. Fight for it." Sophia couldn't sleep that night. She heard raised voices coming from Alexander's study, followed by the slam of a door. In the morning, she found an envelope under her door. "We need to talk," Alexander had written. "It's not what Melanie made it out to be. Please give me a chance to explain. A." Sophia stood with the letter in her hand, torn between the desire to run and the hope that maybe, just maybe, what had started to blossom between her and Alexander was worth fighting for. For 3 days, a tense silence filled the mansion as Sophia avoided Alexander, focusing solely on her duties. Melanie, meanwhile, made herself at home in the guest suite, observing the awkwardness between Sophia and Alexander with unconcealed satisfaction. On the 4th day, Sophia found an elegant box on her bed with a card. "I'm waiting in the conservatory. A." Inside was a brooch with an amber stone, a companion to her bracelet. The conservatory was a glass-enclosed sunroom at the back of the house. Alexander was waiting there alone, pacing nervously among the exotic plants. "You came," he said, his voice full of relief. "Only to get some clarity," Sophia replied coolly. "The brooch is beautiful, but you can't buy my forgiveness with gifts." "I know." He stepped closer. "Sophia, it's true. I never finalized the divorce paperwork. I thought Melanie had filed it in the States." "Why did she come back?" "Robert, my former partner she left with, went bankrupt. She lost everything and now she's trying to come back to me, or rather, to my money." Sophia crossed her arms. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "Because of this." He handed her a file folder. "These are copies of the divorce filings and a recording of a call between Melanie and a friend where she openly discusses her plans. My lawyer obtained it legally." Sophia looked through the documents as the recording played. Melanie's voice was emotionless. "Alexander was always naive. All I have to do is play the part of the repentant wife, and I'll get a hefty settlement. The fool never even noticed the final papers weren't filed." "I see," Sophia said quietly, handing the folder back. "What are you going to do?" "My lawyer is finalizing the divorce tomorrow. Melanie will get what she's entitled to under our prenup, and nothing more." Alexander took her hands in his. "But what's more important is what you are going to do." "I don't know, Alexander. This is all happening so fast. For me too. I never planned on falling in love with the woman who jumped into my arms to escape a cockroach." He smiled, his eyes warm and sincere. "But it happened, and I don't want to lose this because of Melanie's schemes." "I need time," Sophia said, "and I need to be sure that I'm not standing between you and your wife." "I understand. But please know that I'll wait." As Sophia was heading back to her apartment, she ran into Melanie in the hallway. "So, you're the little housekeeper who's turned his head," she said with a sneer. "Don't fool yourself, dear. Alexander needs a woman on his level. Your little fling is just a whim." "Maybe you're right," Sophia replied calmly. "But at least I don't have to manipulate and lie to make someone want me." She left a stunned Melanie in the hall and went to her daughters. Maya immediately sensed her mood. "Did you and Mr. Warren have another fight?" "No, sweetie. It's just complicated grown-up stuff." "I like Mr. Warren," Maya declared. "He helped me with my school project yesterday. And he doesn't treat us like poor little orphans he took in out of pity." "Really?" Sophia was surprised. "Yes," Caroline added. "We had a long talk about my college plans. He said he sees potential in me and believes I'll be a great doctor." A warmth spread through Sophia's chest. Alexander cared not just for her, but for her daughters as well. The next day, Melanie moved out, slamming the door and muttering threats. Alexander came home that evening looking exhausted, but with relief on his face. "It's over," he said, finding Sophia in the library. "The divorce is final. Melanie is gone, with a settlement conditional on her silence about her own fraud." "That's good," she replied, not looking up from her book. Alexander sat down beside her. "Sophia, I have to know, do we have a chance? Does what started between us have a future?" She set her book down and looked him straight in the eye. "I'm scared, Alexander. I'm an ordinary woman from Pilsen, a single mother with a lot of baggage. You're a lonely man with his own demons," he finished for her. "Maybe that's why we understand each other so well. What will people say? Your friends, your business partners? What does any of that matter?" he asked, framing her face with his hands. "Life has taught me one thing. You have to seize happiness when you get the chance. And you, Sophia Novak, are my chance at happiness." Sophia felt her last doubts melt away under his words and his touch. She leaned in and kissed him, this time without hesitation, without fear, fully aware of the choice she was making. "It's not going to be easy," she whispered. "The best things in life never are," he answered, pulling her closer. That night, lying in her bed, Sophia marveled at the incredible turn her life had taken. From a lonely struggle for survival, through a chance encounter with a cockroach, to falling in love with a man from a completely different world. Life sometimes wrote scripts stranger than any movie. From the bedroom, she heard Caroline's soft voice. "Mom, are you asleep?" "No, come in." Her daughter perched on the edge of the bed. "I saw you and Mr. Warren in the library," she said quietly. "Oh," Sophia felt herself blush. "Caroline, I'm happy, Mom," her daughter interrupted. "You deserve this, and so does he. You're more alike than you think. You've both lost someone important. You both wear armor to protect yourselves." Sophia hugged her daughter, moved by her maturity. "When did you get so wise?" "Somewhere between moving into this mansion and watching you start to smile again," Caroline replied, hugging her back. Sophia fell asleep with a smile on her face, feeling that her life, though full of unexpected turns, was finally heading in the right direction. Spring arrived in Chicago, painting the city in vibrant colors. 3 months had passed since the official start of Sophia and Alexander's relationship. It had developed calmly, filled with shared moments, from morning coffee to evening conversations by the fireplace. The girls had completely accepted Alexander, especially Maya, who had started to see him as the father she barely remembered. On a sunny April morning, Sophia was preparing breakfast when Alexander wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I have a proposal for you," he whispered. "What do you say to a vacation? Greece, a private island, just the 4 of us." "That sounds like a dream," Sophia smiled. "And one more thing," Alexander added, his tone more serious. "I have an important charity gala next week. I'd like you to accompany me, officially, as my partner." Sophia froze. This would be their first public appearance together, an introduction to Chicago's elite. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted honestly. "What will your friends say, your business partners?" "It doesn't matter. I'm proud of you and I want everyone to see it." She nodded despite her reservations. "All right, I'll go with you." The preparations for the gala felt like preparing for battle. Alexander hired a stylist who helped Sophia choose a dress, an elegant midnight blue gown that highlighted her natural beauty. Caroline helped her mother with her makeup, while Maya buzzed with an excitement usually reserved for the first day of school. "You're going to be the most beautiful woman there, Mom," she assured her, as Sophia stood before the mirror, barely recognizing herself. When Alexander saw her, he was speechless. "You look breathtaking," he said finally. A limousine took them to the Grand Hotel where the gala was being held. A throng of photographers waited at the entrance. Sophia felt her legs threaten to give out. "I'm right here with you," Alexander whispered, squeezing her hand. The flash of cameras, the shouted questions from reporters, the curious stares of the other guests, it all descended on her like an avalanche. She walked at Alexander's side, trying to remain calm, though her heart was pounding. Inside the ballroom, she recognized faces from television and magazines, celebrities, politicians, titans of industry. No one hid their surprise at seeing Alexander Warren with an unknown woman. "Alexander, who is this?" asked Anna Davenport, a well-known fashion designer and an old friend of Melanie's. "This is Sophia Novak, my partner," he replied with a smile, putting a protective arm around Sophia's shoulders. "Oh, your housekeeper?" Anna's tone was laced with disdain. "My former housekeeper, and the current love of my life," Alexander corrected, his gaze turning cold. "And I would advise you to treat her well, because unlike you, she has my complete trust." Anna walked away in a huff, but that was only the beginning. Throughout the evening, Sophia heard whispers and felt judgmental stares. When she went to the restroom, she overheard two elegant women talking. "Poor Alexander. He's completely lost his mind. This woman is a nobody, a common cleaner. She's probably after his money. I heard she has 2 daughters from a previous marriage. She's played her cards very cleverly." Sophia returned to the ballroom with her cheeks burning. Alexander immediately sensed her change in mood. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she lied. "I'm just a little tired." The party wore on, and Sophia felt increasingly out of place. At one point, an older man with white hair and sharp eyes approached them. "Stephen Karski," he introduced himself. "I've been Alexander's mentor since he was a young, ambitious business student." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Sophia replied. "I've been watching you all evening," Stephen said. "You have something that most people in this room lack: authenticity. I can see why Alexander chose you." His words were like a balm on her wounded pride. After Stephen left, Alexander explained, "He's the most respected man in Chicago business. If he accepts you, the others will follow." And indeed, the atmosphere began to shift. More people came over to meet Sophia, some out of curiosity, some out of respect for Alexander, but there were also those who seemed genuinely interested. Toward the end of the evening, as Alexander gave a speech about his foundation for single mothers, an initiative inspired by Sophia, she looked at him with love and pride. He was brave, standing by her side against the weight of social pressure. On the way home, they were silent, holding hands. It was only when they were back at the mansion that Sophia said, "Thank you for being there for me tonight. It was harder than I expected." "I'm sorry about that," Alexander sighed. "I should have prepared you better. This world can be cruel." "But we got through it, right?" She managed a weak smile. "And we'll get through whatever comes next," he promised, kissing her tenderly. "Together." The next day, a tabloid ran an article with their picture under the headline, "The Millionaire and the Maid, Romance of the Year or Calculated Move." Sophia read it with tears in her eyes. The article was full of innuendo and half-truths, suggesting she had seduced Alexander for his money. Caroline, seeing her mother's distress, snatched the paper and tore it to shreds. "This is garbage, Mom. Don't let them get to you." When Alexander found out about the article, he was on the phone with his lawyers within minutes. The tabloid was forced to print a retraction and a formal apology. That evening, after the girls were asleep, Sophia and Alexander sat in the garden, looking at the stars. "Maybe we should slow down," Sophia mused. "Not be so public about this." "No," Alexander said firmly. "I will not hide, and I will not apologize for loving you. I survived the bankruptcy of my first company, Melanie's betrayal, my sister's death. I will survive this." Sophia looked at him with gratitude. This strong, decisive man was ready to fight for their relationship against the whole world. "I love you," she said for the first time, realizing as the words left her lips that they were profoundly true. She loved him with her whole heart, despite their differences, despite the obstacles, despite her fear. "And I love you," he replied, holding her tight, "and nothing is ever going to change that. Going to, Odem, in the quiet of the Chicago night, under a sky full of stars, Sophia and Alexander sealed their commitment to each other, a commitment to face adversity together, to build a love stronger than the prejudices of the outside world. And from a window in the mansion, Caroline watched them with a smile. Her mother deserved this happiness, a man who saw in her not a cleaner or a single mother, but an extraordinary woman worth fighting for. The warm June wind felt soft against Sophia's face as she stood on the terrace of the Greek villa. Before her stretched a breathtaking view of the turquoise sea and the small private island that belonged to Alexander. 2 months had passed since the gala. 2 months that had brought more change than all the preceding years. After the media storm, Alexander had made a decision. He officially moved Sophia and the girls into the main part of the residence, not as staff, but as his family. The business world had quickly grown accustomed to the millionaire's new partner, especially after it became clear that Stephen Karski, Alexander's mentor, genuinely liked her. "I wondered if you'd ever find someone who could break through that armor of yours," Stephen had said to Alexander one evening. "That woman has the kind of strength you need." Now, on the Greek island, far from Chicago gossip and business obligations, they could finally enjoy some peace. The girls were splashing in the sea under the watchful eye of a lifeguard, while Alexander finished one last call. "Sorry about that," he said, joining Sophia on the terrace. "I promise that was the last business call of this vacation." "Don't apologize," she smiled. "I understand you can't just disconnect from your company for 2 weeks. He put his arm around her and they gazed at the horizon together. "You know, I never thought I'd be happy again. After Zoe died, after Melanie's betrayal, I just poured everything into work, into building an empire, as if that could fill the emptiness. And now?" she asked softly. "Now I have you, and Caroline, and Maya. And for the first time in years, I feel like everything is right where it's supposed to be." That evening, after the girls had fallen asleep, exhausted from a day in the sun, Alexander asked Sophia to take a walk along the shore. The moon cast a silver path across the water. "Do you remember our first dance at the gala?" he asked suddenly. "Hard to forget. I was terrified everyone could see my knees shaking," Sophia laughed. "To me, you were the bravest person in that room." He stopped and turned her to face him. "Sophia, these last few months have been the happiest of my life. You've shown me that there's more to living than contracts and board meetings." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sophia's heart jumped into her throat. "I didn't plan it this way," he admitted, opening the box. Inside, a delicate ring with an amber stone surrounded by tiny diamonds sparkled. "I was going to arrange a fancy dinner, music, fireworks. But," she asked, her eyes fixed on the ring, "but I realize that's not your style, or mine. We prefer things that are simple, honest, authentic." He dropped to one knee, taking her hand. "Sophia Novak, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears welled in her eyes. She hadn't expected this. Not here, not now, even as their relationship grew more serious. "Alexander," she began, her voice breaking, "are you sure? I'm still just an ordinary woman from Pilsen, a former cleaner with 2 kids. "You're the love of my life," he answered simply, "and the mother of 2 wonderful girls who I already love as my own. I'm not looking for a society wife or a business partner. I'm looking for you, with everything you bring into my life." Sophia felt her last reservations dissolve into the warm Greek air. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll be your wife." Alexander stood, slid the ring onto her finger, and kissed her with such tenderness that her knees went weak. "I have a confession to make," he whispered when they finally broke apart. "The girls knew. I asked for their permission." "You did?" Sophia couldn't stop smiling. Caroline said it was about time, and Maya asked if she could be the flower girl. They laughed, walking on along the beach, hands intertwined, their hearts full of plans and dreams. The next morning, Sophia woke up as a millionaire's fiancée. She lay for a moment, looking at the ring glittering in the morning sun. How was it possible that her life had changed so completely in just a matter of months? The answer came when Caroline and Maya burst into the bedroom, squealing with excitement when they saw the ring. Alexander followed them in, carrying a tray laden with breakfast. "You knew!" Sophia accused them, laughing. "Of course," Maya confirmed, hugging her mother, "and we've already figured out what the wedding will look like." "Have you now?" Sophia raised an eyebrow, looking at Alexander. "I let them dream a little," he admitted, sitting on the edge of the bed. "But of course, all the final decisions are yours." Over breakfast, they planned their future, not just the wedding, but their whole life together. Caroline was starting pre-med at Northwestern in 2 months, with help from Alexander's foundation. Maya was preparing to start middle school. And Sophia had discovered a passion for organizing charity events and was helping Alexander run his foundation for single mothers. "How about a wedding in Chicago, but the honeymoon back here?" Alexander suggested. "That sounds perfect," Sophia agreed, "but nothing too lavish, a small ceremony, just our closest friends and family." "What about the press?" Caroline, ever practical, asked. "They'll be circling like vultures." "My PR team will handle them," Alexander assured her. "One official photo for the media and that's it." After breakfast, the girls ran down to the beach, leaving Sophia and Alexander alone. "You don't regret this?" she asked quietly, twisting the ring on her finger. "Regret what? The best decision of my life?" He sat beside her, taking her hands in his. "Sophia, do you remember the day you jumped into my arms to run from that cockroach? How could I forget? It was the most embarrassing moment of my life," she laughed. "For me, it was a wake-up call. It was as if someone suddenly flipped a switch in a dark room. Your spontaneity, your authenticity. After years of living among people wearing masks, suddenly here was a woman who was just herself, with all her fears and weaknesses, but also with incredible strength." Sophia felt tears sting her eyes. "Who would have thought one little cockroach could change so many lives? I should build a statue of it in the garden," Alexander joked, kissing her softly. Late that afternoon, as the sun began to set, the 4 of them took a boat out into the middle of the bay. The crystal-clear water shimmered in shades of blue and turquoise. "To our family," Alexander said, raising a glass of champagne. The girls had orange juice in fancy glasses. "To our family," Sophia repeated, her heart overflowing with joy. As they were returning to the villa, Alexander stopped Sophia on the terrace. "There's one more thing we should talk about," he said seriously. "That sounds ominous," she joked, but his expression made her turn serious. "What is it?" "The house. Our house." "The mansion on Lakeview isn't our house," she asked, surprised. "It's my house. I want us to have a place that is truly ours, yours and mine. A home we choose together, decorate together, and fill with new memories." Sophia felt a wave of emotion clutch her throat. The gesture symbolized more than just a change of address. It was a final break with the past and the beginning of a brand new chapter. "Do you have somewhere in mind?" she asked. "A few options," he smiled mysteriously. "But I want you to make the final decision. After all, you're the one who turns any place into a real home." Sophia wrapped her arms around him, resting her head on his chest. She could hear the steady beat of his heart, strong and sure, just like him. The man who had entered her life by accident was now going to be her husband, a father to her daughters, her partner for the rest of her days. "Who would have thought," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "What, my love? That I would take a job cleaning a millionaire's mansion, that I would see a cockroach and leap into your arms like a lunatic, that you, instead of firing me on the spot, would fall in love with me." "Fate works in mysterious ways," Alexander admitted, "but I believe everything happens for a reason. Every choice, every chance meeting leads us to where we are meant to be." And as they stood there, holding each other while the sun set over the Greek Sea, Sophia knew it was true. All the hardships, losing her husband, the struggles of single parenthood, the daily fight to make ends meet, had led her to this moment, to finding love in the most unexpected of places. to creating a new family with a man who saw in her more than just a cleaner, and it was all thanks to one small cockroach that had appeared in the right place at the right time. Life sometimes writes scripts stranger than any movie, and sometimes, just sometimes, it gives them a happy ending. As darkness fell, the family went inside. Tomorrow was another day of vacation, and then the return to Chicago, wedding preparations, a new home. But tonight, in this moment, everything was perfect. Sophia Novak, the future Mrs. Warren, fell asleep in the arms of her fiancé with a smile on her lips, knowing that the best was yet to come.